That's a big conversation. This is the Cricket Show, and good to see you all. I'm Matt, good to see you. And as always, we've got Steve, the cricket guy. You all right?
Evening, Matt. Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Good to see you too. And Tony as well joined us, the legend, the man. He's had his birthday just now. So happy birthday to Tony. You all right?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Enjoying this glorious summer weather.
Oh, okay. Well, anyone who's watching this who's not in England, we've had, it's been a little choppy, shall we say, a little unpredictable. 1 minute it's sunny, next minute it's raining, next minute it's cloudy, and it's interchangeable throughout every minute of every hour. So there you go. But here we are anyway. And so, unfortunately, no IPL. We talked about it last week. Due to COVID pandemic there in India, unfortunately. But there is still county cricket going on. And that's all exciting stuff. I've just shown a picture here of last year's champions. So they won and all those people happy. But obviously they may not win it this year. But we're going to talk about county cricket for the next few weeks. The 100, which is going to be a big one, which we cover, starts on the 21st of July. Okay, so we've got quite a few weeks, let alone months, till that comes along. So let's get into it. So, Steve, over to you. The boys are going to talk about who are their best players so far in the whole situation with County Championship. So over to you, Steve.
Cheers, Matt. Good evening. Hi, Tony. Good to see you, mate. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to everybody who's watching and listening. So I thought it was about time we just had a wee look. There's been 5, we're into the 6th game of the season for most teams so far. I think Durham and Derbyshire had a game that was rearranged, so they're a game behind everybody else. But we've got, we're getting on for a few games now. People have had a few innings, and I thought it was worth having a look and see who'd stood out for us so far this season. I think it's been an interesting mix of, for me, when I've had a look at the scorecards and look at the games and see what I thought. There are a few names that are, folk that are coming back or folk you've heard of, and 1 or 2 people I've been quite interested in who I've maybe not thought of as much before. So, Tony, if you're ready, are you ready? Have you been looking at the County Championship 11 as well?
Yeah, well, what I've done is I picked an 11 who were eligible to play for England. So I know I've got a couple of people certainly would be in it if it was a cross nationality, like, and we may as well start at the top, like Beddingham of Durham, who's South African, who would undoubtedly be in the team.
Yeah, well, let's start with our batsman then. So, certainly I've kind of gone for a 1 to 11, and so I've actually got Beddingham slipping in at number 4 in my batting lineup, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, I think so far, let's talk about him. So, young South African player who has kind of given up on South African domestic cricket, and I think given up on being a South African international player. Signed for Durham, I think he was there last season as well, and has had a brilliant start to the season. He's averaging 113. He's got 567 runs. I don't think he scored too many today. Let's see, did he get any today?
I haven't seen the score today.
Yeah, no, he got 24 today. So he's he's approaching 600 runs now, and we're only in the middle of May, so he's doing pretty well. He's got 200 and 250s, so really a very good player, and one who's really, for me, really announced himself this season so far, Tony.
Yes, I mean, he's only 27, which is a good thing, and his career average actually is 43, which is a pretty good effort. I have to disagree with you on one point. If he qualifies, I believe, with Durham as not an overseas player, but he has expressed a desire that he wants to play for South Africa, so he's come in as an overseas player.
Right.
So he's not. Whereas there are a couple who have renounced their opportunities to play for South Africa. Of course, well, that can be reversed, I'm sure, at very short notice. But totally, I mean, he's yards at top of the averages, and he's got, I think, more runs than anybody else, unless Adam Lyth scored a bucketful today. He was the one nearest him.
Yeah, no, I don't think Lyth had a bat today. I'm not sure there was any. There was no play in the Yorkshire game today, so he's well clear of Adam Lyth. Yeah, so as I say, I have Beddingham slipping in at at number 4 in my batting order, which obviously means I've got a top 3, which doesn't include him. So I've opening the batting for me is a young batsman from Sussex, with a great name for an opening batsman of Haynes. Tom Haynes of Sussex, who averaging just a shade under 50 so far this season in 10 innings. He's got 103 50s, so he's doing very well. He's 22 years old. I think he's a left-hander. I think the word that's often used for him is diminutive. Again, it's always good to see a player in their early 20s start to score consistently. Obviously it's early in the season, but certainly for me so far, in terms of perhaps a player I hadn't taken notice of before this season, Tom Haynes is probably one at the top of the list for me, Tony, as somebody who I think is was certainly one to watch.
Yeah, I haven't got him in. I tell you, I had a sort of a raison d'etre. I picked it as if it was a team, and I felt that there had to be 2 or 3 experienced players in the team to hold the youth together. And my number 1 is Rory Burns. Now, Rory has scored this year. He has had 7 innings, no knockouts. He scored 331 runs, a high score of 126, and he's averaging 47.2. And he hasn't scored a ton, but he scored 4 50s. And I looked back and I thought, well, let's see, do we need experience in this team? So I looked at his test record, 1,290 runs at an average of nearly 31, high score 133, and he's got 200s and 8 50s. So loads of experience. And in the county cricket, he scored over 10,000 runs. At an average of over 41, nearly 42. And he scored 19 tons and 57 50s, which actually could be construed as a criticism.
Yes, it could. Not a great conversion rate,
Like they said that about Joe Root, I remember. He gets loads of 50s but doesn't convert them into centuries. And that would seem to be a legitimate criticism of Burns, but I put him in the team, and not only did I put him in the team for experience, I made him captain. So he was my number 1.
Well, that's very interesting. I think Burns is a good player. I think he's sure to keep his place in the England team for this summer, certainly to start with. And obviously needs to do well. I suppose if you look at his numbers, you would say at Test cricket, he probably wants to add a few more to that average of 31, because that's a sort of danger zone average that is not exactly going badly, but it's not really setting the world alight either, and it's kind of in that sort of done okay but droppable range. So he probably will want to add to that.
I think he was picked a year late. He was absolutely scoring tons and tons of runs for Surrey, and he didn't get picked. And then they ran out, I think, of opening options, and they finally turned to him, and he did all right. But as you say, he hasn't set the world on fire. But he's got bags of experience, and as I say, I in my 11, I picked actually a squad of 14. But in my 11, there are a lot of young players, and I just felt that we needed 2 or 3 more mature players in the team. And he's done well enough in the county championship so far. That's why I picked him.
Very good. Who else have you got opening your batting?
Well, my other opener is a guy called Libby of Worcestershire, Jake Libby. I don't know if you know much about him. He's 28. His career average is 31 virtually. This season he's had 7 innings with 2 not outs. He scored 485 at an average of 97. His highest score is 180, and he scored 2 tons and 2 50s. And he's been knocking on the door. In fact, last year, up until the very last match of the Bob Willis in the final, he was the leading run scorer with 498, only to be passed by Alistair Cook, who scored a century in the final for Essex. So he's not only doing it this year, but he did it last year too. So I think he's well on the way and playing for an unfashionable team, Worcestershire. and I think he deserves his place. And he's at a good age, 31, mature, and as I say, averaging this summer 97.
Yeah, well, he was also my other opening batsman as well in my side. As I say, I think it's obviously an average of 97 certainly stands out and made me take a closer look. And yeah, he's heading for 500 runs. I think he just had about for the last few balls of the day today, and he's something like 5 not out or something overnight. So we're looking forward to seeing him. And this is one of the joys of county cricket, isn't it, Tony? Is a name somebody pops up and suddenly is somebody you can look out for in the scorecards and in the reports and in the highlights and so on, just to see how they get on. But yeah, no, for me, Libby has stood out as well as a player who's certainly made his mark at the start of the season. So what
I like, he's built upon last season. He's not just a one-season wonder. He did well for them last year, as I say. Until the last match, he was the leading run scorer in the Bob Willis Trophy. So
good stuff.
Worthy of his place.
Yeah, great. So my number 3 batsman, and I think you might approve of this, I've got Tom Wesley. And he's also in as my captain, I think, at the moment. So he scored just under 400 runs in 9 innings. So he's averaging in the high 40s. He scored 200s this season already. And of course, the thing about Wesley is one of the many batsmen that's been given a go in the England team over the last few years. And he played a handful of test matches. He also was scoring runs for fun in county cricket, and then he got selected. And it didn't really work for him in test matches. He had a bit of a lean time. And again, it's one of those things that I don't know about you, Tony, I can find a bit frustrating sometimes, is there becomes a bit of a head of steam built up to select a player. And Wesley was one of those where there was a head of steam and he should be selected for the difficult number 3 slot. And then he gets selected, and the first thing that happens on the television is the commentators start to say, but of course, the thing about Wesley is his technique is X, Y, and Z, and he can't do this and he can't do that. And you think, well,
you know. They said the same about Rory Burns. That was it. That was it. They looked. I, as you know, I'm an Essex fan, a great a supporter all my life of Essex. I think he's a good county player, not quite out of the top drawer. He'll do a good, solid job for Essex this season, but I would be very surprised if he sets the world on fire. He's not in my team.
So you don't think he's somebody with a return to Test cricket in him?
No, I don't think so. No, I think his teammate possibly has a better chance, Lawrence, but I haven't got him in my team either.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's done enough for me so far this season.
I've only got one Essex player in my team, and you can guess who that is. Anyway, I've gone for current form, although he's dropped off a little bit. I've gone for Adam Lyth at number 3 from Yorkshire, who scored 538 runs, second only to Beddingham, at an average of 67. He scored at high scores 116 in 9 innings, 1 not out, and he scored 2 tons and 3 50s. And furthermore, he's a specialist slip fielder, and he's caught 9 catches this summer already for Yorkshire. He's 34, so he's mature. He too, of course, has had his chance at Test cricket and didn't quite take it. I think he is only averaging 20 in tests, not quite, but he's certainly doing the business in the county championship this year. And he started off like a whirlwind. I mean, he and Beddingham and Libby and Pope maybe and a few others, they're all in with a chance of achieving the magical 1,000 runs before the end of May. They are, yeah. Of course, that's weather conditional, in my opinion. The weather could spoil everything, but I had him in again. You see, he was the second of my 3 experienced county players in the team to help the young ones. Yeah.
No, I think he's a good pick, and I certainly thought about putting him in my team. I see it more as a specialist opener, and I thought I was happy with Haynes and Libby and giving them a bit of airtime as less well-known players. But yeah, no, Lyth certainly has had a fantastic start to the season. I seem to remember he did have one very good game for England where he scored a very nice 100, but it never really quite came to him in any of the other games.
He didn't. He promised, and I think the flower wilted a bit. But some people make top class county players, but he wasn't given a long run in the Test team.
No.
And of course, now you see the selection process is much different, in that you tend to pick a player and say to him, well, you're in for 3 or 4 tests anyway, which I think is a good thing. If you're going to pick somebody, everybody has an off day. Everybody gets a Jaffa every now and then, and everybody gets a bad decision, although those are less so now in Test cricket with the DRS. But anyway, I had him in. I like a specialist slip fielder. They're worth their weight in gold, and he's got 9 catches there this year, and I think that is significant.
That's a pretty good call, actually. That's something definitely to think about. Yeah, well, we've got some folk on the stream watching us live, Tony. So I'd be delighted if anyone wanted to chip in and let us know if there's anybody they've been watching or following score runs this season that we haven't mentioned yet.
Indeed.
So you had Bedingham opening the innings, Tony. I've got him in at number 4.
I didn't put him in because he's South African.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Openers were Burns and Libby.
I beg your pardon.
And then live at 3. But Bedingham, of course, if you're going every nationality, Bedingham has to walk in. You couldn't leave him out.
No, you couldn't. But okay. So who do you have at number 4 then?
At number 4, I've got a surprise packet. I've got Alex Lees, who once upon a time was said by no lesser beings than Boycott and Michael Vaughan as being the most promising player who should carve out a Test career for many years to come. And he had a little bit of a hiccup that he recovered last year and did very well. This year he's had 7 innings, 1 not out. He scored 309 runs at an average of 51.5, high score 129, and he scored 2 tons and 2 50s. And his career average is still good, is reasonable, nearly 36, 6,750 odd runs. And he's shown that he can get a big score. His best score in first class cricket is in county cricket is 275 not out, and he scored 17 tons and 32 50s. So he's a consistent player. He's not a one season wonder, and I think his talent is coming back this year. I put him in. It was a very close run thing with a guy called playing for Glamorgan, called Carlson.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've got him in your team.
I haven't got him in my team, no. But when we spoke about players who'd started the season like a train a few weeks ago, Carlson was one of my picks then as somebody to watch, and he certainly had a very good season so far. He started very, very well in the middle order.
He's only 23. His career average is not great. It's 26, but that was due to a poor start. This season he's had 8 innings with 1 not out. He scored 460 runs at an average of 65. He scored 2 tons and 3 50s.
He's in cracking form, isn't he?
So he's going very well. It was between him and Lees for the number 4, and to be honest, I took notice of Boycott and Vaughan, and it just swayed me to, because he's was obviously such a promising cricketer, and he's doing well this season. So Lees was my number 4, but very close thing with Carlson.
Yeah, Lee's got a 99 today as well. He was out for 99 today. Yeah, wow. So again, more good runs. So he'll be up to nearly 500 runs, I think, from what you said before.
Oh, that's 500. Then he's near 550.
Yeah. So for me, after Bedingham sneaking in my number 4, I've got Ollie Pope batting at 5 in my team. So again, you mentioned him before. Yeah, he's got nearly 500 runs, including a 245. So he's in good form, which bodes very well for England, averaging nearly 70 this season. So Pope is in cracking form, and that's good. I'm glad he's in good form. It's nice to have an England player in good form in the county championship before the busy international summer starts. Yeah. Did you say you had him in as well, Tony?
I had him at number 5.
Yeah.
I had a doubt in that he scored 485 runs, and 245 of those were in 1 knock.
Yeah.
So in the other 6 innings, he's scored 240 runs, but still good because he's no knockouts. So he's averaging, as you say, 69. He scored 2 tons, and his test average is 32. So he's proved it, and I had him in. He's only 23 still. I mean, the lad has to be a prodigious talent.
Yeah.
And as long as he keeps his head screwed on, I think he can only go from strength to strength.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think for me, Ollie Pope, when I thought about this, and I thought of names immediately that came to mind, along with Beddingham, Pope was one of the ones that immediately came to mind to me, which is as somebody that I wanted to see in my team. So that for me, in my top 5 of my specialist batsmen, I've got a wicketkeeper batsman in at number 6, and I've got James Bracey from Gloucestershire in at 6 for me. Yeah. So again, nearly 500 runs, averaging over 50 this season, and he's also taken 18 catches so far this season. So I haven't got numbers on how many he might have put down, mind you, but I think he's renowned as being a pretty good keeper. So I don't think his keeping is in doubt. So for me, that again, great to see him. He was toured with England over the winter, been around the squads. England have got good wicket-keeping options, good wicket-keeper batsman options. Obviously, Buttler is at the top of that list. Ben Foakes came in as the first reserve in the winter tours and did okay, but Bracey has got to be pretty close to getting a Test cap, and maybe even close to getting a Test cap as a specialist batsman, which England haven't been afraid to do with good wicket-keeper batsmen over the last few years.
He does play high up in the order as well.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, it was a close run, only for the fact that he's a peculiar nationality, and I kept to my English people. There's a guy playing for Northants, keeping wicket in a left-hand bat, and his name is Vasconcelos. And he this year has scored. Oh, let me find out for you. He is in eight innings, 1 not out. He scored 493 with a high score of 185 not out at an average of 70, and he scored 2 tons. He hasn't scored any 50s. He is a Portuguese South African, and signed for Northants 3 years ago, and has been steadily improving. And this year, he's got, I think it's 18 victims already this year. It might be 16, but it's certainly a way up there in the victims. He's only 24, and he's, I think, a very promising situation. He had a very good season the season before last, and was in fact the leading scorer. He had 750 runs from 10 innings at an average of 46, and had scored 200s and 350s when he got a bad injury. And he was off for the rest of the season. After only 10 matches, he was out for the rest of the season. And he went to South Africa and rehabilitated. He's come back, and he's signed a 5-year contract until 2024. And he has renounced his right to represent South Africa. So and as you know, the powers that be have reduced the residency rule from 7 years to 3 years. So he is, if he continues this run, he could be one of these ones that comes up on the outside. He's a tremendous batsman, and will run Brace close if Brace doesn't continue on his good form.
Yeah.
Bracey,
Bracey. No, Vasconcelos is always, it's one of those names when you see it on a scorecard where you have to go and have a look and see who this chap is. But yes, he's a South African player, Portuguese family history. So yeah, that's interesting. So did you have him batting at 6 as your wicket?
I didn't have him in. It was a close run thing with him and Bracey, and in the end, I went for Bracey.
Yeah, good stuff. So 7 is where I have one of my 2 all-rounders. And my first all-rounder is Matt Critchley from Derbyshire. So 24-year-old leg spinner. He's taken 15 wickets so far this season, but he's also scored nearly 500 runs at over 60, an average of over 60. So I think that's what's really interesting. And we've spoken a bit on the show before, Tony, about England's spinning options and where they might come from. And I think we're very firmly in the it's not Don Bess's fault camp for England's winter tour, and I think we think Leach is a good player. But it is interesting when England are clearly looking at other spinners as well, as they had some in the squad. Around the squad, they had Verdi from Surrey, they had Parkinson from Lancashire, and they had Mason Crane. So Crane and Parkinson are both leg spinners as well, but they are very definitely number 11 batsmen, I would say, particularly at Test level. I don't
probably
think they
12, probably 12 actually.
Yeah, they don't offer a lot with a bat. Whereas Critchley, of course, Critchley does offer a lot with a bat. So I think it'll be quite an interesting one. It goes 24 years old, is still quite young for a leg spinner, I think, to really develop his game. But I think it's interesting. There's one who can really bat.
Well, it was interesting when I chose my number 7. I agonised, and I thought, I don't know what Steve's going to say about this, because my number 7 was Matt Critchley, and I had to choose whether putting him in at 7 or picking Parkinson, who has got 19 wickets this year at an average of 19.2. But of the 19 wickets, he took 7 in one innings, and he's only taken 12 since. Critchley, as you say, he has performed well too. He's got 15 wickets, but not anywhere near as good an average, at 32. But he bowled 815 balls or 136 overs, and Parkinson 133 overs. So there wasn't much to choose between them bowling-wise. Possibly Parkinson has a slight edge. But Critchley, by far and away with his bat, I mean, he's only 25, as you say, and his career average is 30. And then in 8 innings, 483 runs, as you say, with an average of 60. High score, 109. He scored a century and 4 50s. And to my mind, him coming in at number 7 was a stone-cold banker for me. And so with the greatest reluctance, Matt Parkinson has not made my team.
And I went through a very similar thought process as well. I think I've already seen twice this season people claiming that Parkinson's bowled the ball of the century. So that's not. So he's obviously in cracking form. And I know you make your point about him taking 7 wickets in one innings, but of course that takes some doing as well. To run through a team and to do that is also the sign of a good bowler, of course.
Well, so you see, they did have the runs to play with, so that he was allowed to bowl virtually unhindered because it was 7 to 126. Which was so. I mean, I doubt whether had they not had those runs to play with, whether he would have got that.
He would have got such a long bowl.
Exactly. You know?
And that also might, again, we were talking relatively few games so far this season, 5 or 6 games. So again, that might have had an effect on his inning, on his average so far, if he's been able to bowl against teams who are hanging on and not looking to score runs, for example. So, but it was a close run thing. Do I think Parkinson's the better spinner? Probably. But do I think Critchley has a very exciting and enticing all-round package? And I think he could be one to watch. And as I say, 24 years old, who knows where that will take him.
I looked at it with the fact that we're looking at it taking place in England. Maybe if you were talking about Australia or something, that both of them could go, one as an all-rounder and one as a leggy. But I certainly think that if you were to pick an England team, for instance, probability is, unless it was a very dry summer, they would only go in with one and a backup, and I would regard Critchley as the backup spinner, one spinner and a backup spinner. Whereas, as you say, batting at number 11, generously at number 11, Parkinson has got nothing more to offer, really. I mean, okay, if you're a great bowler, it doesn't matter, but he's not yet reached that standard.
No, that's right. So interesting choice there for us selectors between Critchley and Parkinson. So I presume then you move into your pace bowlers. Who's coming in at number 8 for you, Tony?
Well, I picked 3 pace bowlers, and at first I had a young lad in. Well, at least he's 26. I had Higgins in of Gloucestershire, who is a bit like Critchley. He has taken this year 28 wickets at an average of 18, best 5 for 62, and he's bowled 56 maidens out of 205. So but he's not a pace bowler as such. He's a good medium pace bowler, and he bats well too, because he's got he scored 228 runs with a high score of 73 at an average of 32. So he's not a slouch with the bat, and he nearly made it. But in the end, I went at number 8 with Craig Overton. Maybe it's a bit high for him in the order, I don't know. But he's got 32 wickets at an average of 13.9, best of 5 for 25. He's bowled 206 overs, of which 78 were maidens. And he's no slouch with the bat either, scoring 211 runs at an average of 35. In 7 innings, only 1 not out, and 2 50s in that. So, to my mind, Overton took the opportunity there, and I've got him in at number 8.
Well, that's very interesting, Tony. My number 8 is young Master Higgins of Gloucestershire, for all the reasons you've said. And my note on him, 26-year-old, is ? Quick enough for international cricket? And you would say generally not, but then there have been some very, very successful bowlers.
In English conditions, I would say he's another maybe the poor man who's got a terrible knee injury now, Toby Rowland Jones.
Yeah.
It was something similar, I think.
Yeah.
He, of course, Higgins was born in Zimbabwe, you know.
Right.
And has made it despite the handicaps of coming through the system.
Yep.
I actually had him in the team, but when I went for another fast bowler of some experience, and he lost out. Yeah.
Well, my number 9 is Craig Overton.
Right.
So there you go. We're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah.
And I do think Overton is one of those who I think looks like he could well be good enough for a return to test match cricket. He has played a few games. He's there are a lot of coming fast bowlers in England at the moment. Ollie Stone, Ollie Robinson, and so on. But I think Overton has done everything he could so far this season, and as you say, has shown he's no mug with a bat. I think possibly if this was a test team, batting at 8 would probably be a bit high until he was an established member of the team. But certainly you would, in his early test matches, you'd probably want to protect him a bit with a bat and let him bat at 9 or 10. But yeah, good player, taken a lot of wickets this season, and seems to be having a real purple patch with Somerset. So yeah, I was pleased to be able to pick them both. So my 10 and 11, I'm just going to go straight to those, Tony, because I'm an old romantic at heart.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go further than last week's heroes for Northamptonshire. So I've gone for my 2 Northamptonshire seamers, Gareth Berg and Ben Sanderson, as my 10 and 11.
Oh my word.
Simply because they took 19 out of 20 wickets between them in the match last week.
One match.
Fantastic.
You did there, Steve. Sorry. Yeah, they didn't even make my long list.
Well, I was getting wistful. But Berg's an interesting character. So far this season, again, brilliant. 19 wickets at an average of under 19, and he's averaging 44, 45 with a bat. He's had a couple of not outs in there, batting lower down the order. Didn't realise he was both 40 years old. Which I didn't realise. He has been around a while. He was at Middlesex for a long time, where I grew to love him. But what I didn't know about him, Tony, is that he's an Italian international cricketer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's played cricket for Italy. So there you are.
You can pick them. There's no doubt about it. A 40-year-old Italian. Yeah. And there's nothing racist about that. It's just amazing. You pulled him out of the hat there.
Yep. And Sanderson, again, he's probably the wrong side of 30 for any kind of pretensions of a test career or anything, but 20 wickets at 28.75. So, good wicket taking so far this season.
Yeah, they're your 10 and 11.
Yeah, Sanderson's average with a bat is something like 5, so he really very much is a number 11.
Well, I haven't put Craig Overton in at 8. I've got a 9, 10 and 11.
Go on then.
So I go for my number 9, which is going to astonish you. It's Simon Harmer of Essex.
I am stunned, Tony.
Who I bow down in front of as probably the greatest spinner in the world. He's 32. First of all, with a bat, he scored in 8 innings. He scored 154 runs at 25.6, a high score of 82, and he scored 250. So he's not a mug with a bat. But come to the bowling, he's bowled this year 275 overs, far more than anybody else. And in that 275 overs, 89 were maidens. He's taken 22 wickets, which for a spinner in seam bowling conditions, I think is fantastic. And he's taken those admittedly at an average of 27.8, but he's taken 22 wickets. And to my mind, he would be my #1 spinner. And I had, as you say, Critchley in as the backup spinner. So he was my spinner, and therefore he was at 9. Number 10, I had an old stager, and I thought I can't leave him out. He's bowled 102 overs only this year because it was truncated, because he was out in India. 23 maidens, 14 wickets in those 102 overs, which is a tremendous, for 351 at an average of 25. Best this year so far, 4 for 39, and he's on the increase, and that is Stuart Broad. And I had him in there as my 3rd senior player to give the youngsters a bit of maturity. And then my number 11, you mentioned him earlier on, is Ollie Robinson. He's taken this year, he has taken he's had 127 overs, 30 maidens, and he's taken 25 wickets at an average of 13.8. And he of course had that one fantastic innings where he took 9 for 78. Now he's only 23 years of age, and the danger is that he does what Ollie Stone did, and a couple of others get stress fractures in their back or something like that. But at the moment, I cannot see that you can leave him out for pace, accuracy. He's got 30 maidens out of his 127, and as I say, 25 wickets at 13.8. So he was my number 11.
Yeah, I have to say, if I got misty-eyed at Northampton's bowling performance last week, but if I was being a little more ruthless about it, I think Robinson would definitely have been in my team as well. And if you like, for me, he joins Parkinson on my mythical flight to wherever we're touring with this team, and he's certainly in there alongside those. But Broad's a good shout, and again, I think it's both Broad and Anderson have been bowling in the county championship this season, but Broad has been excellent so far, and has really been very good.
Another small point about Robinson, he's only had 6 innings and he scored 204 runs at an average of 40.8, 250s and a high score of 67. So he's no slouch with the willow. No, he's doing well. Or as they're trying to say, with the potential bamboo. So I couldn't leave him out. He was one of the, after Pope and Libby, and he was the 3rd man on my selection list.
Very good, very good. So have we covered all of your squad players as well, Tony? Is there anybody else who just missed out that you haven't mentioned?
The squad players I had Carlson and Higgins were the 2, and I had what I call some honourable mentions, but they're what I call nearly men. I mean, that wicketkeeper I was telling you about, Vasconcelos. I looked at Hamid. I looked at James Vince, who has got 350 runs at 43.75, but he's in an appalling run of form at the moment. He's what I call somebody who promises, and I wonder, does he ever deliver? But in the fast bowling department, I looked at a fellow Nottinghamshire fast bowler alongside Broad, and of course these often happens when people bowl well in tandem, and that was Fletcher of Nottinghamshire, who's 33 years of age, so he's nearly as old as Broad. But he has taken this year 21 wickets for 314 runs in in somewhere like 120 odd overs. So I thought he nearly made it.
Yes, he's a classic English seamer, isn't he? I think Fletcher, who's a good player.
When I was researching my batsmen, I was interested to see. I got given a book for my birthday, which was called, if I look over, it's called The Cricketers Who's Who 2021. And in it covers virtually every county cricketer, and they interview some of them. And some of the batsmen were asked, who is the most difficult bowlers you have come up against? And there were two bowlers, one who's been around for an awful long time, who was in three of the batsmen that I was looking at, and that was Rushworth of Durham, who has this year taken 17 wickets at an average of 18.7 and bowled 43 maidens. And he was quoted by three people as being the most difficult bowler that they had played. And a couple went for a young fella that I would keep an eye on, and he's in a tough county. It's Code of Yorkshire, who's 27 now, and he's taken this year only 10 wickets for 165. So it's 10 wickets at 16.5, but he's only bowled 330 balls. Which is just over 50 overs. So that's only sort of 10 overs. It's less than 10 overs a match. So it hasn't had that much opportunity. And the couple of batsmen, I won't mention their names, I don't know how private it is, said that he was one of the most difficult bowlers that they faced, certainly of the younger brigade.
Younger bowlers, yeah, that's interesting.
And the last person I looked at was a guy called Hill of Leicestershire, who has scored 499 runs at an average of 62 this year, a century and 4 50s. He was a wicketkeeper. He was the main wicketkeeper for Leicester, and then lost his place to a youngster, and he's concentrated on his batting. And as a result, his batting has come on by leaps and bounds. He was one on the fringes that I would keep an eye on.
That's a good shout. Yeah, I looked at him as well when I was looking at my team, but I couldn't really look past Bracey for me. But I suppose if there was one other player that I almost picked,
not keeping wicket anymore at the moment, anyway. For Leicester.
Yeah, if there's one other player I might have picked, Tony, if I could have managed to fit one in, because as you'll note, I did pick one of your Essex boys, but I was trying to see if I could find an excuse to get one of my Middlesex boys in the team, and I came close to wavering on good old Tim Murtagh, who's still going strong and has bowled pretty well this season. But Middlesex, I think they're going into the 6th game of the season today. They've picked 19 players so far this season in the county championship. And poor old Peter Hanscom, who's come over from Australia to captain the team, is averaging something like 15 or something at the moment. He's having a very, very lean trot so far. So it's been a very tough season for Middlesex. And then, as we mentioned, Roland Jones has got another injury. Bless him, he's injured his knee this time, I think. So that's a real shame, because he's fought back from injury to get back to playing first class cricket again, having been in an Ashes squad, and having been at the top of the game.
Yes, his is a very sad case, because I think he was on the cusp of nailing down, especially in English conditions. I think he was on the cusp of nailing down a Test place.
He
he
did very well.
Send him abroad, but I think in English conditions he's a very, very good bowler.
Yeah. So that's a shame, but so poor old Middlesex. Spare a thought for them this evening in your prayers, Tony.
I will.
I'm sure you will. There you go. Excellent stuff. So, Mac, there we are. We have it. We've got two teams. We've looked at who's been doing well so far, and I think there's a lot of overlap in our two teams.
8 or 9 out of the 11 are an overlap. We think that they're mostly unsung heroes. There's no Joe Root, there's no Butler, there's no Bairstow, there's no Jimmy Anderson, there's no Leach. So I think for us to agree on 8 or 9 out of the 11, probably 9, I think we agreed on, really. Because Beddingham I would have had in any event if I hadn't restricted it to English qualified players. I think it's an amazing performance.
Yes, great minds think alike. Fools seldom differ. Exactly. Brilliant stuff. So there you go, Mac. That's our players who have impressed us so far this season. There's plenty of young players there for fans to keep their eyes on. I'll certainly be particularly looking out for Critchley, I think, and for Bracey and Bedingham and so on. There's lots of good players there.
And I think Libby might cause a few surprises too.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you. It has been a pleasure listening to you and your insights. And look, anybody watching, I'd love to hear your comments about it. I know that we're only just starting to get into the cricket season. It's still spring, really. Well, it's definitely spring here. It's lots of rain and stuff like that. But and I know some games are getting called off or delayed or whatever. But it's great to hear your insight, boys. And it's good that you can agree on quite a few bits. I was surprised. I thought there'd be more, tenseness there and arguments. But very gentlemanly, like the game of cricket.
I can assure you, Malcolm, we hadn't swapped notes beforehand either. Absolutely not.
Brilliant. So, look, it's county cricket and we're going to continue to talk about it until the 100 starts and anything else that comes in, which you want to specifically talk about. I know you boys are doing an admirable job. So thank you very much. And look, thank you for everybody who's watching this or who's watching this not live and watching this afterwards. Thank you so much. We appreciate your watching and contributions, and leave comments. We love comments about all that we do. And thank you for anybody who's listening to this. We always appreciate the listeners. I know that there's quite a few, and it's very encouraging. And thank you so much for joining us. And join us where we'll continue to talk through all the stuff that's happened in the cricket news. So thanks, Steve, for your contributions as always.
Pleasure, Mac. Great to be here.
Thank you. And thank you, Tony, for everything you said as well. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
Cheers. And thank you for everybody. As like I said already, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching or listening.